Hello and welcome to the Hume podcast from and Lowell. For those of you who don't know us, Hume is a recruitment training business co-founded by myself, Ed Khan, and Laura Hopes.
And each week we're going to be giving you 10-minute snippets into our world of recruitment, tips and tricks to help you on your journey as an agency recruiter, and hopefully some laughs along the way too. We hope you guys enjoy. Am I in this?
Sure. We had some feedback from podcast watchers that they didn't want you on it.
Oh yeah, no, I am in it. These hot chocolates look really bleak. We've got hot chocolates. They look really bleak because there wasn't enough milk because Des used it all. So it's just water and powder. Anyway, welcome to this week. We thought this week we wanted to focus on something for kind of any of you leading a team. So anyone who's in a team leader or on the journey towards, like on an emerging leadership path, I guess. We wanted to put a couple of episodes together that would speak to those of you who are in those more senior positions or looking at people management. And this week we thought we would cover
a fun topic.
Managing a toxic top performer, i.e. high performer who brings in high volume of billings, makes a shitload of placements, and is really bad for your culture. How do you manage that? And, you know, we see so many agencies letting behaviour slide because billings are just put on the pedestal.
And guys, whoever's listening to this, when I started my own agency a few years ago, it was focused on rec to rec. And I would say in the first 2 years, I probably interviewed and spoke to, I'd say, well over 2,000 recruiters. This is a huge problem in our industry. A lot of those people were looking because of behaviour within that organisation was let to slide because someone was a big performer. And there's a huge opportunity cost to your business if you let that slide.
Yeah.
And it's sort of that short-term versus long-term thinking of going, well, we can't let them go because they bring in $1 million. I'm like, cool, that's fine. But what's the opportunity cost to your business? Because no one really wants to work there. How many people have you lost as a result? How much billings have you lost as a result of that toxic top performer? Because they negatively impact the rest of your team and negatively impact their billings. There's huge costs when you actually break it down and go, great, that person's billing $1 million. What is the rest of the team doing? How many people have we lost as a result of this person? What's the culture like? Do people enjoy working here? As a result of us letting that person's behaviour slide, have we then, as a result, had to let other people's crappy behaviour slide and they're not top performers? How much money are you actually losing as a business by keeping this one top performer?
Yeah.
A huge amount when you break it down.
Yeah, because it's 5 people billing 200K, which obviously, you know, from like a cost profit perspective, but, you know, how much does it cost you to rehire in your team if you're losing people because of that person? How many desks have been started and then not got up to speed because people have left? And I think it's, you know, as an agency, as a leader, you have to align performance. The performance has to be measured by both behaviours and competencies. And if you, as an agency, only have performance measures in place that are numbers driven, financially driven, then you are potentially at risk of this stuff because you can't not promote someone based on their behaviour. And, you know, when I work with organisations now on looking at kind of career pathways and setting up their career pathway programs, something that we're, you know, really, you know, hot on, something that is really important is that we're not just measuring people on their skills, we're measuring them on their behaviours and or their values and what they're actually contributing to an organisation, how aligned they are with culture. You don't get promoted, you shouldn't get promoted if those things aren't in place. And so you just don't allow it to develop from the get-go because the expectations are all transparently laid out, as in this is what we would love to see you billing to move into a principal role. But alongside that, these are the behaviours that we expect from you, and we expect these values to be cultivated, and we will hold you back if we don't see that.
Is that the biggest, before we go into any resolutions or tips on how to manage this person, I think that is a huge problem. It's where it starts. It's not values and behaviours driven, it's performance driven, purely performance driven. That does drive the wrong behaviours.
Yeah.
And people learn internally, they go, cool, that person can get away with whatever they want.
You can do whatever you want as long as you're billing.
F-wit. As long as they're billing, they're totally
This is our podcast. You can say fuckwit.
I know, I don't know why I said
I don't know. You swear like a trooper in our training session.
I think it's because I did another podcast and I wouldn't swear on that one.
I'm like, F-wit. Say fuck. Fuckwit.
But it is. It's a challenge for an agency that hasn't typically been focused on behaviours and values and driving that through the team. Because it takes time. That thing does not happen overnight. There's no conversation that you can have with anyone overnight to change the values and behaviours of the business. That's something that is deeply entrenched and something that absolutely has to come from the top and needs to be lived and breathed. It's tough then to manage people on behaviours if you as an organisation as a whole don't understand what good looks like behaviour-wise.
Yeah. And if you don't have your values in place. And I think you do have to make a stand for the good of your wider team. And you have to be prepared to lose a high performer with the view of someone will replace them and it will be someone more aligned.
You know what I liken it to? Just thought about this. This is very similar to a TOB negotiation.
Yeah, you have to be prepared to walk
Stay
away.
with me. Yeah, you have to be prepared to walk away. And the minute the other person on the other end knows that you're willing to walk away, they typically then come closer to you. But if you're going into a TOB negotiation and in your head you're like, I'll just accept whatever because I'm desperate for this win, similar to your employee who may be toxic but high performer, if you're going into those conversations going, please don't leave, they will know it. And they will get worse and worse. And my tips around that, and I've been in this situation before a couple of times in businesses prior to my own, whereby you ultimately know if someone is salvageable. Sounds really brutal, but someone's been let to run the roost for 10 years and they are just incredibly toxic, hugely impacting the rest of your team and your ability to grow your business. It's probably time to sort of manage them out. And one of the things that you, as a business owner or a leader, maybe sitting there going, we literally cannot afford for $1 million a year to go out the door. And in that scenario, I'd be slowly trying to introduce and mitigate your risks as a business on that desk. And it's not going to happen overnight. You can't just completely take someone's clients from them. They will end up walking. So it's slowly introducing other things, introducing a support person to that person. Might be seen as a really nice thing to do, but there's then you're lessening your exposure. And
the risk.
Ideally what you want is, if those clients that toxic performer is billing with, if they're only contacted with that person, you're completely fucked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because they're leaving with that person.
And the minute you start introducing cross-selling, for example, is a really good one. You don't necessarily need to sort of take those clients away from that person or grow that team to sort of get exposure, but it's, okay, cool. We've mapped the market as a business. Your 20 top clients have got other divisions across accounting, finance, blah, blah, blah. We've never tapped into those. We're targeting you to try and help the business as a whole. We want you to introduce your clients to X, Y, Z, and not sort of, do you know what I mean? Because then there's more exposure across the business to those clients that you can actually retain them and take the power away. Because ultimately, when that toxic top performer type scenario happens, there's an imbalance of power.
Yeah.
And the toxic top performer knows it. And so you need to start taking the power away from that.
And you have to just mitigate the risk of that person leaving and taking those clients with them, because that is the reality, you know. And I would say that's just a tip across the board as a leader. Like, are you across the accounts in your business enough that you could retain those relationships
100%.
when your recruiters leave. And that's a whole nother conversation that we could touch on. One thing last thing I wanted to say on this is, if you're thinking like, well, how do I, we do have this kind of established culture in our business, and how do we kind of reset on this? I think a really nice thing to do in your own team is what we call like developing a team charter, where essentially we just go, guys, we can have a bit of a reset on values and behaviours, but I really want your opinions on what we want to celebrate in the team and what we want to eradicate from the team. So we're going to run it workshop style session, and we're just going to have a round table, and we're going to sit around and we're going to draw up a list of values and behaviours that as a team we all value and hold in high regard. And then we're also going to draw up some behaviours that we will call each other out on if we see them. And as a team, it becomes the responsibility and the accountability of the team to uphold the standards, as opposed to you just coming in being like, this is now what I expect from you guys behaviour-wise.
100%. That's such a great idea. If that's where your business is at and you need a bit of a reset and a calibration, 100% start there, because what will come out in those conversations will be things that you had no idea about as problems.
Yeah.
And also the other thing that you mentioned is, just as a wider business, I think that's such a worthwhile exercise, and maybe we do an episode on it, which is assessing where your accounts are at as a business. How many recruiters are in touch with each one of your clients? If it's just one recruiter per one client, you're hugely at risk of losing that client if that recruiter goes. And I would be doing that yearly in terms of print off your client list, how much have you billed? No doubt you're doing that as a business anyway. But then go down one by one and go, cool, Telstra, who's actually working on that account? What touch points do we have? If it's just Laura, that's a huge target now for us to actually land and expand. And if you didn't listen to last week's episode, I'd recommend it. It's on landing and expanding. But just mitigating your risks as a business of losing key accounts, because we know as business owners how hard it is to win accounts. And we can't just then rest on our laurels and go, yeah, Laura's got that. Well, Laura's got it right now, but
we don't know
when
Laura's
she
going to
leaves,
be in a year, 2 years. I'd love that you were like, we could do an episode on this, but you basically just did it. But I think it is a really good, but I think doing an annual, in summary, like doing an annual plan on that of just going, okay, traffic light system, reds are high risk, ambers, we need to do a little bit more work, green, we've got a few people across that account, I've got a good relationship with them, the recruiter. Like, I think you actually need to sit down and do that as a leader and evaluate where you're potentially at risk of losing accounts in the future. It's a great exercise.
I was surprised if any business owner or leader in this, who's listening to this, has not had a scenario whereby they've had someone leave and then they've tried to contact those accounts and try and keep them. The clients don't want to know at that stage because they loved Laura, but Laura's left now, and who the fuck are you? You're starting from scratch.
Which is why, restraint clauses are just bullshit, because it's so, it's so obvious at that point, like trying to claw back, oh, you used to work with this consultant, they're not in the business anymore, we'd love to work with you. Well, this consultant's gone somewhere else. Your restraint clause was anti-competitive. It will never stand up in court. You send your little legal letter. That client already has got
other recruiters trying to chase their work. They've already built some relationships with other recruiters that have been knocking their door down, and you're coming in fresh-eyed going, hey, it's me. You're starting from scratch. You're not going to retain that business. So why was this not sort of thought about and mitigated in the start?
Yeah. All right. Big subjects covered this week. Happy to have chats with anyone around this sort of stuff if you're facing those kind of issues culturally in your business. Thank you.
And if you have any ideas of things that you'd like us to cover, God, I can't even talk. If you have any ideas of things that you would like Laura and I to cover or discuss, please drop us a line and connect with us on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
See you next week.